What's up everyone, Michael here with another topic video. Today we're talking about how PlayStation Now is available on PC, which is Sony's streaming service, which is kind of a roundabout way to get console exclusives on PC, but hey, some people aren't complaining. I won't say I'm complaining, but I'm definitely not a fan. We'll talk about that in this video. Get into details later. First things first, game in the background is Phantasy Star Online 2. Game I wanted to play. Had problems finding a game to play while talking about Sony because they're a console company. I don't have a PS4 or anything like that to actually stream a game or anything like that, so this is what I got. There you go. It's also available on PS4 and PlayStation Vita, but it's also available on PC, which is where I'm playing it, and it's where everyone should play it, because that's the best version of the game. Anyways, back on to topic. So what is PlayStation Now, just in case you don't know what it is? Essentially, it is a streaming service from, like, Sony. And what it does is essentially you send your inputs to a server, and then those inputs are put into the server's kind of game that's running the game on their end, and then it sends you the video feed of what's going on. Now, this comes with some obvious points if anybody knows how the internet works. Well, it has a delay, and that's kind of obvious. That's a problem with streaming in general. You know, the general problems with streaming are not solved by this format at all. But originally, it was only on Sony consoles, and so, you know, it was streaming Sony games to Sony consoles, which sounded a little bit ridiculous, but originally, from what it sounded like, I remember when it was originally announced for PS4, they were originally kind of a way to play PS3 titles on the PS4, kind of a roundabout way to do, you know, backwards compatibility, to where, like, yeah, well, you can get the streaming service instead of having to buy a PS3. Problem is, the streaming service is actually really expensive. It's $20 a month, which means that to be able to get the service for a year, you could just buy a PS3 and whatever games that you wanted to play on it, which is kind of ridiculous. I did the math, you know, to buy a PS3, it's like $100 to $150, depending on the model you want. And to get games, you can get them as cheap as like $5 and stuff like that, depending on where you buy them. So yeah, any game that I wanted to play either, like maybe The Last of Us is probably the most expensive one. My friend keeps telling me they want to play it, that I should play it because he thinks it's amazing and everything like that. I don't necessarily care. But regardless, he's like, hey, you should play it. You know what? That game is $15 on PS3. I could just go buy a PS3 and that game instead of getting the streaming service, which is kind of the major point of it. Though people had problems kind of justifying it, but now that it's on PC, there's actually a justifiable reason for it, because while not all the games on the list, because there is a list of games that you can play on it, it's not just any Sony game. You actually have to go look up the list for whatever games are on it, and I suggest doing that before you even consider purchasing it. But it's a pretty long list of games. Most of them are multi-platform games, and so a lot of them are already on PC, so there's really no big deal. Just buy the game on a Steam sale, you know. Most of them are pretty cheap. Like, I remember they were advertising Borderlands on the list, and I'm like, yeah, for one, Borderlands doesn't have that big of an audience on PC anymore, as in, it's kind of overstayed its welcome, because, you know, there's been other shooters that have kind of excelled beyond it. It's not a bad game. I still enjoy the hell out of the game, but you know, that's not really something to advertise as a service, considering that game's been out forever. It's been extremely cheap multiple times, and yeah, why would I want to stream it? I would just play it anyways. But regardless, there's also a few exclusive titles, such as Heavy Rain, which people supposedly like, The Last of Us, which my friend keeps wanting me to play, as I said, or the Disgaea games, which actually perked my interest. But the thing is, these Disgaea games are actually coming to PC eventually, so that's actually why I'm not even interested in the streaming service in general. But there are a few titles that are like, hey, you know, these are exclusive to Sony consoles, you know, you may want to pick them up. The problem is, it is a streaming service, so in general, while it has that sort of selling point of, you know, now you can actually play console exclusives on PC, which is kind of cool, it's a roundabout way of doing it and not particularly the best. In fact, I would say that it's probably the worst. The way that streaming works is that it, you know, sends to a server and then sends you back the video feed. So not only is it data intensive for those on data caps, you know, obviously you would not want a service like this, but it is also going to be delayed. Now, for the general consumer, maybe this doesn't matter. Maybe a lot of people don't really care, but I am definitely a gamer at heart, and that means that I want my games to perform the best that they possibly can, and I want them to play well. And the problem with streaming is that everything has a delay, even if it's a half a second delay, which I think people are reporting that it's about a second delay on the PS Now for a lot of games, which for playing a lot of console games, I guess that's not too bad. Like, they kind of expect you to be kind of playing close up to your monitor or not close up to your TV, and they expect you to be using a controller and just kind of chillaxing and stuff like that. So maybe that's an audience kind of thing. But streaming services, no matter how good it is always going to have a delay, which means that, you know, it's not going to be as good as just playing it on your system, which means that if you want to play these games, I would actually suggest as a gamer to invest in buying the console and everything like that. Now, like, even though that sounds kind of ridiculous for a PC gamer to say, that's going to be the best way to experience the games. Now, the way that I would prefer it to be is that you installed the games and then you played it off of your system. Now, obviously, they were built for console, and so what I actually want is them to make an official emulation software. This would be cool. This is kind of a topic for another video, but this is actually what I would rather them do, is to have it so that you downloaded the game and then you played it on your system. We've already had services like this. I believe it's EA that does it, to where you can actually download the titles and then you have online connectivity. Obviously, you have to be connected online to play it. But it allows you to play the game for, you know, while you're paying for the subscription, and when your subscription's out, you just can't play the game anymore. I prefer that sort of system. Now, that doesn't make sense necessarily for console games going on to PC. And as far as I know, this isn't the first time that this has been available. I believe there's other ones, like On Live, I believe, is one that had console games and things like that you would stream to your PC as well. So this isn't exactly original either, but it is the first time that we've seen these Sony games coming over, because On Live, I believe, was stuck to kind of like third party and everything like that. So that kind of brings in an interesting way to where maybe there's just one game that you just are absolutely dying to play. You could probably purchase it for a month and then play it and stuff like that, and that'd be like buying the game and stuff like that. You would have to deal with the streaming stuff, and, you know, not everyone's going to care about that, and maybe that's just kind of what you'd have to deal with just to play the game instead of buying the console. So you would be saving money in that respect if there was just one game and you only wanted to play it once and you didn't want to have it in your collector, you know, kind of collection of games, which I prefer that collection of games. I prefer to actually like own them, or at least have a license for them and have a library. Like, even though, you know, systems like Steam on PC, you don't technically own the games, you just own a license to it. It still kind of is there, and, you know, the kind of prevalence of the company has made it so that that's not really going to go anywhere. You know, I prefer that. And there's obviously PC games that I've installed and have discs for as well. Like, I have Sonic Heroes over in a box over there, you know, and I can just install that whenever I want to play it, as long as I get by the secure ROM, like DRM that doesn't work on Windows 10 anymore. Thanks, Microsoft. Anyways, that's off topic. But that's what I would rather have it be, is like, you know, kind of an emulation software that would allow you to play it on PC. I think that would obviously be the best solution, and maybe that's on its route, because this is kind of a showing that Sony's realizing that PC isn't necessarily 100% their competitors. They're obviously saying, hey, you know, we can actually make money off of these guys if we allowed them to play their games. Microsoft has already been in this movement for quite a while. As in, you know, they're like, hey, well, we may as well just release our exclusives on PC as well. And they're kind of saying, hey, you know what? Xbox One is probably a last console, because they already have investment in PC. They may as well stick with it because it's where everything's going. And Sony's kind of jumping on this bandwagon, but in a very strange way. Now, I obviously don't like PlayStation Now. I think it's a stupid thing, and I've obviously just said how I would rather it be. And I think what they should focus on is just bringing their exclusives to PC anyways. Like, we're not competitors. PC gamers are not competitors. You know, people are not going to stop playing on console just because PC exists, because PC has existed for a long time. PC has a large, like, library of titles that are never going to be on a console, and never can be on a console, that tons of people would enjoy playing, but they're console gamers and they don't really see the PC gaming as a viable market because they don't understand it. And maybe this will change in the future, but at the same time, when it does change, that means that consoles are going to start dying because they don't have that many exclusives. Like I mentioned, you know, they have titles like Heavy Rain and God of War. That's another one I didn't mention. You know, but the thing is, there's better games. Like, I think DMC is a way better action game than God of War, and I think it may not go as ridiculous as Killing Gods, but it's still pretty ridiculous, and I enjoy it a lot more. Or games like Bayonetta, which was best on, you know, the 360 because it ran the best. I guess you could play it on Wii U if you want to deal with the Wii U, but not really. I still think the 360 version's the best. But regardless, you know, that game was an amazing action game that I think is way better than Gears of War, but like, the exclusives are only gonna get so far, and it's not gonna draw people into paying for this service for a long term, and it is really, really expensive for PlayStation Now. Like I said, it was $20 a month, which means that, you know, to get it for a year, I could just buy a console and then buy the games I want to play, which is definitely the way I'd prefer to do it. Obviously, not everyone's going to think that, but hey, that's my opinion on it. But ultimately, you know, obviously, I don't think it's worth it. But what do you guys think? Just leave it in the comments. You know, what do you think on it? You know, do you think there's better alternatives? Do you think this even matters? Do you think PC gamers are actually going to care? Or do you think it's going to be people who are thinking, hey, you know, I don't have a console while I'm on traveling, so I'll just pay for this streaming service instead? That might actually be a market for it. You know, would you be able to do that? Like, that actually sounds like a better market. I didn't even think about that until just now. You know, maybe this would actually be selling not to PC gamers, but actually console gamers. You know, maybe they're away from home. They don't have access to their PS4, but they're somewhere with reliable internet. And they'll be like, you know what? Pay $20 for the month that I'm here or whatever, and then be able to play a bunch of games from PS3 and stuff like that, or whatever they have on their list. You know, that would actually be an interesting market. So, you know, it's not just something that's just bringing to PC. It actually has a viable market elsewhere. And once again, it's not really competing with their already, you know, kind of PC market as well. It's kind of like, you know, this is just another thing added on top. It's kind of like bringing in kind of mobile apps, which Nintendo has been doing recently, and they've actually been kind of pushing towards doing it to where they have apps that are Nintendo branded, and they're making, you know, companion type stuff. I know Just Dance is doing a new thing with their new version to where they have like phone apps and things like that. I don't know too much about it, but I was reading about it the other day. So maybe that's the route that Sony's going. Maybe they're trying to make it so that PC is more of a kind of addition, kind of like mobile things. Maybe they're going to do some stuff with mobile in the future where, you know, maybe they have a mobile app that you can stream to and stuff like that. So you could end up streaming, like Square Enix has a streaming service to where you can stream to your mobile device, and it has a bunch of Final Fantasy games and stuff like that. And I have the same kind of criticism of that service because it is streaming, and I don't like streaming in general. I would much rather just own the game and play it on a console so I don't have input delay, and it just looks better because you're able to get your full resolution without artifacting, and you don't have to worry about internet connections and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting point. I was going to end the video, and then I was like, wait, that's a talking point. Regardless, anyways, this has been Michael talking about the PlayStation Now coming to PC. I obviously don't think it's worth it, and I think that it's an interesting move, but I still think that they should look into actually, you know, publishing on PC. I think that would be a much more viable, you know, future plan for them, and maybe they are planning on doing that in the future, but they also are kind of testing this, and maybe it isn't even targeted towards PC users. Maybe it's targeted towards console users. Maybe they're like, hey, you know, even though they're advertising it as, you know, they're advertising it as a way to play these PS3 games and PS4 games or whatever on PC, maybe their actual target audience is for people that don't have access to their console, or maybe they don't want to, you know, maybe they don't have the funds to buy a console. So, you know, that might actually be it. It's not really about targeting PC gamers. Anyways, leave your comments, what you guys think below. Are you actually going to get this service? You know, is it something that you're actually interested in? Is it something that you think will actually play out in the future? Because I think that streaming is stupid, and I don't think the internet is actually going to become reliable everywhere quick enough. You know, that's something I didn't talk about, is internet reliability. You know, not everyone's going to be able to have internet to actually use that. Oh god, that boss killed me. Yeah, and so some people are going to have data caps and things like that are going to go into, you know, kind of ruining the entire service to begin with. But regardless, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I obviously don't think it's worth it, but maybe you do. Maybe other people are going to disagree with me, and obviously it might be successful, might not. I know that on console it wasn't very successful, so yeah, and I kind of hope it isn't successful because I would rather have them see it and be like, maybe we shouldn't do streaming and maybe we should just make our games available on PC and sell them that way, because it'd be great. My phone just went off. It would be great to have, you know, maybe God of War and stuff like that on PC. I think it would be a great platform for it, but, you know, I don't know. I just don't like consoles in general anymore, unfortunately. Anyways, this has been me for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this one. Also, check out my Impressions review series if you're looking for PC game reviews, or check out my other topics if you want to learn a little bit about the news and my opinions on it. You can also check those out, and I will see you guys in the next video, and I'll probably play more Phantasy Star Universe and get back to that boss and kick its butt because it killed me.